To repay a life debt, I'd poured money into the struggling campus queen. I bankrolled her education, launched her career, turned her into a star. But she'd always been distant, almost frosty. At the height of her fame, she publicly slandered me, claiming I'd used my influence to tear her and her first love apart. It wasn't until they conspired to kill me that I finally learned the truth. Victoria Hayes wasn't the one who'd saved my life all those years ago. Now I was back. Victoria Hayes stood before me, her eyes still holding that stubborn, distant look as she refused my help. I simply said, "All right then, I won't force you." The icy lake water had filled my lungs, my vision blurring in the final moments. I could still see Victoria and her boyfriend, Blake Miller, on the bank, watching me drown as if it were some cheap entertainment. "Ethan, don't blame us." Victoria's voice, which I'd once found so captivating, like cool moonlight, had been utterly venomous. "How could a shallow, rich kid like you, who only knows how to throw money around, ever understand the pure love Blake and I share? You were nothing but an obstacle." Blake had his arm around her, looking down at me as I sank, a hint of patronizing pity in his voice. "We'll put your money to good use, Ethan. And the path you started for Victoria, I'll make sure she walks it." Turns out, the savior I'd given everything to repay was a fraud. The person who pulled me from that lake all those years ago wasn't her. I was just a pawn in their twisted game, a stepping stone to their perfect future. Rage, betrayal, regret. My world had dissolved into an abyss. "Ethan, are you okay?" A voice, familiar yet jarring, yanked me back to reality. My eyes snapped open. My heart hammered against my ribs, loud in my ears. I wasn't at the bottom of a freezing lake. I was in the daily grind, a coffee shop near State University, a place I used to frequent. The air hummed with the scent of brewing coffee, laced with a cloying sweetness from cheap pastries. Sitting across from me was Victoria Hayes. She wore a faded sundress, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail, no makeup on her face. Yet, her fragile beauty was undeniable. She was watching me carefully, those eyes holding her signature stubbornness and a hint of detachment. I knew this scene. It was junior year. I'd gone to insane lengths to track down the person who saved me 5 years prior from Willow Creek Lake. I'd found Victoria Hayes, the campus it girl, famed for her stunning looks and tragic backstory as a scholarship student. To repay that life debt, I'd brought her here, ready to begin my years-long benevolent patronage. In my past life, in this very booth, I'd offered to fund her education and promised to meet any reasonable request she had. She'd been silent for a long time back then, finally agreeing to my help, claiming necessity forced her hand. And now I was back to the exact moment this whole nightmare began. I looked at her, none of the past life's gratitude or careful reverence remaining, only a knot of nausea in my gut. This was the same face that had worn an expression of chilling indifference as I lay dying. "Ethan," Victoria began, seeing my silence, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her tone was the usual, keeping me at arm's length. "I know you come from a wealthy family, and maybe you want to experience the feeling of helping others. But I don't need it. I appreciate the offer, truly, but I can make it on my own." She expected me to badger her, to try and convince her like I had before, even humbling myself for her sake. After all, to her and her crowd, I, Ethan Walker, was nothing but a gullible fool with too much money, easily manipulated by my savior. By the window behind her, a guy in a baseball cap pretended to scroll on his phone, but his eyes kept flicking our way. It was Blake Miller. I scoffed internally. These two had been plotting from day one. One played hard to get, the other played the devoted protector, all to hook the sucker. It was all a setup, laying the groundwork for their future narrative of me tearing apart their pure love. Too bad for them. I wasn't that fool anymore. I leaned back, picked up my coffee, and took a sip. It was bitter, black, and perfectly clarifying. "All right then," I said, setting the cup down with a soft click that made Victoria's shoulder give an almost imperceptible twitch. I looked into her eyes, my voice as flat, as if commenting on the weather. "I won't force you." With that, I stood up, pulled a couple of bills from my wallet, and tucked them under my cup. "Coffee's on me today." Just a gesture between classmates. I turned and walked away, not a single glance back. Victoria was utterly stunned. All her prepared lines, about character being more important than money, about us being just friends, they all died in her throat. She watched me walk to the door, her face morphing from surprise to disbelief, then finally to outright panic. This wasn't how the script was supposed to go. She looked to Blake by the window, a silent plea for help. Blake looked just as dumbfounded. He yanked his cap lower, quickly ducking his head, but the tension in his jaw gave away his agitation. What the hell? Why wasn't Ethan playing along today? I didn't look back, but I could perfectly picture their dumbfounded expressions. How utterly amusing. One thought she was the hunter, the other a master manipulator. Neither realized their prey had just clawed its way back from hell, fangs newly sharpened. Stepping out of the cafe, the afternoon sun felt warm on my skin. I squinted against the glare, taking a deep, fortifying breath. My chest swelled with the exhilarating freedom of a second chance. Victoria Hayes, Blake Miller. In my last life, you two took everything. This time, I'm collecting my debt with interest. And in this life, my most important task was to find the girl who really saved me. I only remembered that before I died last time, Mike, my assistant who handled my affairs, had wept as he told me the truth. It wasn't Victoria who saved me. She and Blake had just been on a date by the lake that day, watching the whole thing unfold without lifting a finger. The real hero was a passing girl. She dragged me onto the bank, gave me first aid, then slipped away without a word. The only clue he found was a small sachet she'd dropped when she left, carrying a faint, earthy herbal scent. Back in my off-campus apartment, I immediately called Mike Davis, my assistant. Mike was a few years older, my father's trusted right-hand man, sent to look after my affairs. He was loyal, dependable. In my past life, he'd stuck by me for over a decade, and he was the one who buried me. Mr. Walker Jr., what can I do for you? Mike's familiar voice answered. Mike, I need you to do two things for me. Immediately, my voice was tight with urgency. Just say the word. First, that production studio project I had you prepping, the one where we were considering signing Victoria Hayes. Kill it. Immediately. All contracts, all intentions related to her, scrap them. A beat of silence. Mike's voice was laced with surprise. Kill it? Mr. Walker Jr., we've put a lot of preliminary work and resources into that. If we pull out now. I said kill it. I cut him off, my voice hardening. I don't care about the losses. From today forward, I don't want the name Victoria Hayes associated with any of my projects. Period. Understood. Mike didn't press, which was one of his best qualities. Second thing, I continued, taking a breath. I need you to use every connection you have. I need a list of everyone who was at Willow Creek Lake, out in the county 5 years ago on the afternoon of August 17th. Anyone besides me. Specifically, female students from State University. Willow Creek Lake? 5 years ago. Mike sounded completely bewildered by my abrupt, seemingly random request. Mr. Walker Jr., that's an incredibly wide net, and so much time has passed. Then I want every vehicle record from that area, every purchase record from nearby businesses, every cell tower ping. I don't care the cost or the method, Mike. I need that list in a week. I practically snarled the last sentence. Last time, I'd been so blinded by Victoria's lies, I never thought to investigate. Mike only started digging after my death, his suspicions finally confirmed. This time, I wouldn't make the same mistake. After hanging up, I collapsed onto the couch, feeling utterly drained. My heart still hammered, part a thrill of vengeance, part the anxious anticipation of finally finding the truth. I closed my eyes, trying to remember the girl who saved me. It was fuzzy, but I remembered her dragging me onto the bank, calling my name. Her hand was on my chest, firm and warm. Her voice was soft, laced with tears, repeating, "Wake up, please don't die." And that faint, clean herbal scent, like a summer field after rain, had brought a strange calm to my reeling mind. Victoria always reeked of cheap perfume. Over the next few days, the rumors about me spread like wildfire across campus. Did you hear? Ethan Walker, the rich kid, tried to buy out our campus queen, Victoria Hayes, but she shut him down hard. Seriously? Victoria has that much integrity? Absolutely. Someone saw him storm out of the daily grind, leaving the coffee he bought her untouched. Good for her. Just because he's rich? Is our Victoria that shallow? I walked across campus, feeling the disgusted stares and smug grins from every direction. Victoria's image as the beautiful, principled, and resilient White Lotus was perfectly cemented by this whole rejection drama. And I became the arrogant jerk who tried to buy a pure goddess with daddy's money. Victoria, of course, played her part to perfection. She'd immediately drop her gaze when she saw me, always taking the long way around, as if I were some monster. Her friends would shoot me venomous glares, as if I'd committed a cardinal sin. Blake would often appear by her side, playing the protective boyfriend, his eyes shooting warnings my way. They thought this would infuriate me, make me pursue Victoria even harder, showering her with more attention and resources. I watched their pathetic act, utterly amused. This afternoon, I was shooting hoops when Blake and a couple of his buddies strolled over. Ethan, he stood in front of me, cradling a basketball, posing like a knight defending his queen. I'm warning you, stay away from Victoria. She's not someone like you can touch. I wiped sweat from my brow, picked up my water bottle, not even bothering to spare him a glance. My blatant disregard clearly infuriated him. He snatched the bottle from my hand and smashed it to the ground. Are you deaf, asshole? Everyone on the court turned to stare. I slowly turned, meeting his furious, contorted face. In my last life, this man had stolen everything from me, cursing me with the most vile words. Pick it up. My voice was quiet, but the entire court fell silent. What did you say? Blake looked like he misheard me. I said, pick it up and throw it in the trash. I pointed to a nearby bin, articulating each word carefully. Blake looked at me like I just told the funniest joke. His cronies snickered behind him. Ethan, are you out of your mind? You want me to pick up your trash? Who the hell do you think you are? I didn't say another word. Just pulled out my phone and dialed. Hey, Coach Miller? Ethan Walker. Yeah, out on the court you manage. Got a bit of a situation here. Intentional provocation, littering, really disrupting things. Didn't your department have a rule about damaging property or disturbing the peace on campus facilities? Yeah, name's Blake Miller. School of Business. My phone was on speaker. Every word I said was crystal clear to everyone on the court. Blake's laughter died in his throat. His face instantly went ghost white. He never expected me to completely bypass the typical confrontation. No shouting, no shoving. Just a direct call to the dean's office. His buddies exchanged nervous glances, their bravado evaporating. Less than 5 minutes later, Coach Miller, looking grim, hurried onto the court with 2 student officers. What's happening here? Who's Blake Miller? Coach Miller's voice was stern. Blake's face cycled through shades of red and white. He came from an average background. A demerit could seriously impact his academic standing, even his future career prospects. Coach Miller, it's a misunderstanding. He stammered. I slipped my phone back into my pocket. A misunderstanding, or not, the security footage will show you, Coach. There's a camera right there. You should take a look. Coach Miller followed my gaze, his expression darkening further. Blake's legs visibly weakened. He shot me a vicious glare, his eyes promising retribution. In the end, under Coach Miller's unblinking stare, he reluctantly bent down, picked up the crumpled water bottle he'd thrown, and shamefully tossed it into the trash. Anything else? I asked, arms crossed, staring him down. What else? Blake bit out through clenched teeth. Apologize. Blake's fists clenched, knuckles white, but he caught Coach Miller's impatient glare and finally ground out 3 words. I'm sorry. I ignored him, turning to Coach Miller with a polite smile. Coach Miller, thanks for coming. I've already accepted his apology. Let's just call off the demerit. Kids make mistakes. A lesson learned is enough. Coach Miller nodded, then delivered a stern dressing down to Blake before leaving with his officers. Just like that, the farce was over. Blake and his cronies were now the laughingstock of the whole court. I gathered my things and walked off the court. I knew that from today, Blake's hatred for me had deepened another layer. But I didn't care. I just wanted them to know that in this life, I was setting the rules. A week later, Mike placed a thick stack of papers on my desk. Mr. Walker Jr., Willow Creek Lake is pretty remote. Any surveillance footage from 5 years ago is long gone. I could only cross-reference vehicle registrations, credit card transactions from nearby, and cell tower pings to get a list of anyone who might have been in the area. It's a huge list, over 300 names. Mike looked apologetic. I nodded. having expected as much. All right, now filter for anyone from State University, especially the female students. Already did that, actually. 27 names. Mike handed me a thinner file. I took the list, scanning each name. Ashley King, Jessica Lee, Sarah Miller. All unfamiliar names. Victoria Hayes and Blake Miller's names were right there. I swiftly crossed them out. 27 names. Still too many. How could I find her? I rubbed my temples, forcing myself to calm down, to remember more details. Herbal scent. That's right, the sachet. Mike, I looked up. Can you cross-reference these 27 girls? What are their majors? Are any in botany, herbal medicine, or anything similar? Or do their families work in related fields? Got it. That should be a quick check. I'll be right back. Mike turned and left immediately. I looked at the list again, a flicker of hope in my chest. Last time, I'd been so utterly blind. All I knew was throwing money, thinking that giving Victoria the best was how you repaid a life debt. I hired the best acting coaches, pulled top fashion resources, and put her on every major stage. But I never actually knew her. What she liked, what she hated, I was clueless. And in this life, the girl I was searching for, I didn't even know her name or what she looked like. But I was willing to use every ounce of patience to piece her back together, bit by bit. Half an hour later, Mike returned, a hint of excitement on his face. Mr. Walker Jr., we got a lead. Out of those 27 girls, only one has a truly unique situation. I instantly sat up straighter. Her name is Sarah Chun. She's a junior in our school of herbal medicine. I checked her records, excellent grades, scholarship student every year. But her family is incredibly poor from a remote mountain town in Pine Ridge County. She's the first person from her village to get into a university like State. Her tuition and living expenses are all covered by scholarships and part-time jobs. Sarah Chun. I searched my memory for the name. Nothing. Most importantly, Mike pointed to a line in the document, lowering his voice. I had someone check with her department advisor. Sarah has a habit. Since she grew up in the mountains, she's really good with herbs. She likes to mix her own calming and mosquito-repelling blends and carry them in little sachets. My heart hammered in my chest. It was her. All the clues fit. Her major, her habit, and that unforgettable herbal scent. Where is she? I gripped Mike's arm, my voice shaking. I found out she's working part-time at a coffee shop called Sunny Spot Cafe off campus, not far from here. I snatched my car keys and bolted for the door. Mr. Walker Jr., slow down. Mike called after me. I heard nothing. I just wanted to see her, the girl who had offered a single, fragile ray of light in my darkest moment. Sunny Spot Cafe. It was a small, cozy spot. The chime above the door tinkled brightly as I pushed it open. A girl in a barista apron turned, paused when she saw me, then offered a polite smile. Welcome. Just you. The girl wasn't aggressively beautiful like Victoria, but her features were delicate, captivating. Her eyes were bright, like a washed clean sky. A tiny mole above her nostril gave her a playful air. Her hair was pulled into a simple ponytail, a few strands framing her face, giving her a gentle look. Was it her? I couldn't be sure. I found a seat by the window and ordered an Americano. She brought the coffee over quickly, placing it on my table. Here's your coffee, sir. As she leaned over, I smelled it. An incredibly faint, yet utterly familiar herbal scent drifted from her, identical to the scent etched in my memory. My hand involuntarily clenched around the cup, sending ripples through the coffee. I looked up, studying her face. This face slowly coalesced with a blurred image in my memory. Yes, these were the eyes that had looked down at me anxiously when I was unconscious. This was the voice that had called my name. I found her. I finally found you. A wave of emotions crashed over me. The bitter resentment of my past life's death, the sheer relief of rebirth, the frantic anxiety of my search, all of it transformed into immense joy, tinged with an indescribable ache. I almost lost my composure, nearly leaping to my feet. The girl seemed a little uncomfortable under my intense gaze. She asked softly, "Sir, is there anything else I can get you?" I took a deep breath, reining in my emotions, forcing my voice to be steady. "Is your name Sarah Chun?" A flash of surprise crossed her eyes, quickly followed by wariness. "Do you know me?" Sarah's wariness was exactly what I expected. A strange man staring at her with such intensity, and then knowing her name? Any girl would be on edge. I couldn't scare her off. I offered what I hoped was my most harmless smile, leaning back in my chair, trying to create some distance. Don't worry, I mean no harm. I'm Ethan Walker from the School of Business. We're fellow students. Ethan. Sarah repeated my name, her brow furrowing slightly, as if trying to place it. I knew exactly what she was thinking. My name, Ethan Walker, wasn't exactly flying high on campus lately, always linked to rich kid, harassing the campus queen, throwing his weight around. Sure enough, her eyes grew even more distant. Hello, she replied flatly, already turning to leave. Wait, I stopped her. She paused, turning back, a flicker of impatience in her eyes. I needed a way to connect with her naturally, not like I had with Victoria, shoving money at her, leveraging a life debt. This girl, I could tell, had fierce pride. I have a friend. I began, carefully choosing my words, trying to sound as genuine as possible. Years ago, he almost drowned, just like I did. A girl walking by saved him, but she left without a name, and he's been looking for her ever since. Sarah's body stiffened almost imperceptibly. Her knuckles, resting on the tray, went faintly white. Got her. I pretended not to notice her reaction, continuing as if to myself. My friend's always felt incredibly guilty, a life debt he couldn't repay. His only clue was that she carried a distinct, pleasant herbal scent, very similar to the one you have. I finished, looking up directly into her eyes. This time, I clearly saw panic flash in her eyes. She instinctively looked away, unable to meet my gaze. Oh, really? What a coincidence. Her voice was dry. I guess a lot of people carry herbal sachets, right? She was still denying it. I smiled, not pushing. I knew that with her cautious nature, pressing too hard would only backfire. Perhaps. I took a sip of my coffee, then changed the subject. Your coffee here is great. Sarah seemed to relax a fraction. She nodded. Thanks. Need a refill? Not yet. I looked at her. Working here part-time, it must be tough. Are you keeping up with your classes? The unexpected question made her pause again. I'm fine, I manage my time. Her tone was a little softer now. I heard the School of Herbal Medicine has a really intense workload. I continued, fishing for conversation. Especially your program. All those ancient texts, memorizing hundreds of herbs. It's essential, she said, her voice brightening a little as she spoke about her major. Practice makes perfect. I've always been fascinated by herbal medicine, I said, looking at the name tag pinned to her apron. Sarah Chun in turn. An idea sparked. Our majors are so different, though. Sarah, I don't suppose I could ask you for some pointers on herbs sometime? Sarah's face clouded with hesitation. She wasn't stupid. She could sense my deliberate approach. Coupled with my recent reputation on campus, it was perfectly normal for her to be suspicious. Just then, the cafe door swung open. Victoria Hayes and Blake Miller walked in. Their eyes immediately landed on me, and then on Sarah standing in front of me. A flicker of jealousy and disdain crossed Victoria's face. She probably figured I'd failed to win her, and was now swiftly moving on to a new target, a replacement far beneath her in looks and social standing. Blake, meanwhile, walked straight to my table. He looked down at me, then at Sarah, his face a mask of undisguised contempt. Ethan, your taste changes fast? Huh? He drawled, a sneer on his face. What? Couldn't land our Victoria, so you're settling for this. Type. The this type he referred to was, of course, Sarah. Sarah's face instantly went paper white. She was from a poor background, dressed simply, and next to these two flashy individuals, she looked utterly out of place. She bit her lip hard, her hands clenched at the hem of her apron, her body trembling slightly with humiliation. I slowly set my coffee cup down, looked up, and met Blake's smug, repulsive face. Get out. My voice wasn't loud, but everyone in the cafe heard it. Blake's face instantly flushed crimson. He probably hadn't expected me to call him out in public, especially not over a part-time barista. Ethan, don't push it, he snarled. Who the hell do you think you are? Just a trust fund kid living off daddy. Victoria walked over, tugging Blake's sleeve, putting on a show of de-escalation. Blake, don't. Ethan, he probably just wants to make a new friend. But while she spoke, her eyes darted to me, a triumphant glint in them. See? You can't stop thinking about me. Otherwise, why would you fight Blake? These two, always putting on a show. I looked at them, and a slow smile spread across my face. I stood up and walked to Sarah. To the shock of everyone, including Sarah herself, I reached out and gently brushed a stray leaf from her shoulder. Then I turned to Victoria and Blake and spoke, each word deliberate. From today on, Sarah Chun, she's under my protection. The entire cafe went utterly silent. Victoria's fake smile froze. Blake's face looked like he'd swallowed a wasp. But Sarah's shock was the most profound. Her eyes were wide, staring at me in disbelief, as if I were an alien. What did you say? She stammered. I didn't answer her. I just stared at Blake's ashen face and repeated, Did you not hear me? I said, stay away from her. Or I don't mind making sure you can't stay at this university. I said can't stay, not just can't thrive. Blake came from an average family, and his grades were nothing special. He relied mostly on his looks and smooth talking to charm girls. I remembered that in my past life, he'd committed academic fraud to secure a prestigious scholarship. If I wanted to, I had countless ways to utterly ruin his reputation. Blake clearly thought of this too, cold sweat beading on his forehead. He knew that with my family's influence, getting him expelled wouldn't be hard. Ethan, he sputtered, trembling with rage, but couldn't find another word. Victoria's face was equally twisted. She hadn't expected me to go to such lengths for a poor girl she dismissed out of hand. This was completely off script. In her mind, I should have been brawling with Blake for her attention, not shielding another girl. Let's go. Blake finally didn't dare challenge me further. He shot me one last venomous glare, grabbed Victoria's hand, and practically bolted from the cafe. The other patrons, like an audience, pointed and whispered, eyes fixed on us. Isn't that Victoria Hayes? Who's that guy she's with? Ethan Walker just challenged Blake Miller for a waitress. Who? Is that Sarah Chun? I ignored the whispers, turning to Sarah, who was still frozen in shock. It's okay now, I said. Sarah snapped back to reality, taking a step back, creating distance. Her eyes were complex, gratitude, confusion, but mostly caution and wariness. Ethan, thank you for helping me out just now, she said, her tone polite, yet distant. But I think there might be a misunderstanding. I don't need anyone to protect me. I looked at her, and a pang of sympathy struck me. This girl, she was like a hedgehog, all her quills up. Her poverty and sensitivity had taught her to shield herself with coldness and toughness, deflecting everyone, good or bad. I didn't mean it like that, I said, softening my tone. I just can't stand seeing people get bullied. Regardless, thank you. But I hope you won't do something like that again, Sarah said, lowering her head, her voice barely a whisper. I don't want to be the subject of campus gossip. I just want to finish college quietly. She finished, gave a small bow, then quickly retreated to the back kitchen, not even giving me a chance to explain. I stood there, sighing helplessly. It seemed repaying this life debt would be harder than I imagined. But I wouldn't give up. Leaving the cafe, I called Mike. Mike, I need to find out who legally owns the Sunny Spot Cafe. Got it, Mr. Walker Jr. Once you have it, contact them. Tell them I want to buy the place. Offer them a premium price they can't refuse. But this needs to be kept completely confidential. No one, especially the staff, can know I'm behind it. Buy it. Mike sounded surprised. Are you looking to get into the cafe business, sir? No. I looked at the cafe sign. I just want to create a better working environment for one of its employees. The next day, Sarah noticed the cafe had changed. The owner wasn't the creepy middle-aged guy who always seemed to find an excuse to touch her. It was a kind, amiable woman. The new owner, Ms. Henderson, immediately announced raises for all staff and doubled Sarah's hourly wage. Not only that, she exempted Sarah from all the cleaning and odd jobs, leaving her solely responsible for taking orders and serving customers. Most importantly, Ms. Henderson was incredibly kind to Sarah, always bringing her homemade treats and saying Sarah reminded her of her own daughter. Sarah felt like she was dreaming. She cautiously asked Ms. Henderson why she was so good to her. Ms. Henderson just smiled and said, I just took a liking to you, sweetie. You're so diligent and hardworking, not like some of these flashy young girls today. Sarah believed it. She thought her hard work was finally paying off, and she poured even more effort into her job. She had no idea that Ms. Henderson, the new owner, was my family's housekeeper of 15 years. I'd simply put her in charge, with the added directive to look after Sarah. And I, in turn, began to frequent the cafe under the guise of just another student interested in herbal medicine. Every time I came, I'd order the cheapest Americano, then sit in a corner, reading for hours. I never initiated conversation, just politely thanked her when she brought my coffee. Occasionally, I'd casually pull out a book on herbs, and as she passed, ask her a question or two. Sarah, this white atractalodes and red atractalodes, the book says they have different effects, but they look so similar. How do you tell them apart? Sarah, excuse me, but do you know where I can find good quality angelic root? Sarah was wary at first, but seeing I was always polite and my questions were genuinely knowledgeable, she slowly let down her guard. She'd patiently explain the properties and uses of different herbs, even pulling out dried specimens from her small canvas bag to show me. When she talked about her field, she absolutely glowed. Her eyes would sparkle, and she'd talk more than usual, no longer the quiet, guarded little hedgehog. I loved seeing her like that. I knew I couldn't rush in her world. I needed to warm her up gradually, like a frog in water, let her get used to my presence, learn to trust me. Just when I thought everything was going perfectly, something unexpected happened. This afternoon, I arrived at the cafe, as usual. Sarah wasn't there. Ms. Henderson saw me and rushed over, her face etched with worry. Ethan, thank goodness you're here. Sarah's in trouble. My heart clenched. What happened? This morning, she got a call from back home. Said her grandma suddenly collapsed, critically ill, and was rushed to County General. The poor kid's face just went white. She cried, grabbed her things, and bolted, said she had to get home immediately. Ms. Henderson wrung her hands. I asked if she had enough money, but she just kept shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. I tried to give her a couple $100, but she wouldn't take it, just ran off. I was on my feet instantly. Which way did she go? She must have gone to the train station. Said she needed the fastest train home. Without a word, I dashed out of the cafe and raced to the parking lot. As I drove, I called Mike, telling him to immediately find Sarah's exact hometown address and which hospital her grandma was admitted to. Mike was incredibly efficient. 10 minutes later, the information buzzed on my phone. Sarah's hometown was a remote, poverty-stricken county in the next state over. From here, it would take at least a dozen hours by train. I immediately spun the car around and floored it toward the highway. My heart was in my throat the entire drive. I could picture Sarah's utter helplessness, her despair. Her grandma had raised her, and they were incredibly close. Last time, her grandma had faced this same critical illness. But without funds for surgery, she'd passed away 6 months later. That had been Sarah's lifelong regret. She'd already accepted my sponsorship back then, but her pride wouldn't let her ask me for a large sum of money. She just quietly worked extra shifts, scrimped and saved, trying to earn enough for the operation herself. By the time she finally had the money, it was too late. This time, I absolutely would not let that tragedy repeat itself. With the GPS guiding me, I called Dr. Harrison, the chief of our group's largest private hospital in the state capital. Dr. Harrison, Ethan Walker, I need your help. Immediately dispatch your best cardiovascular and neuro specialists with the best equipment to Pine Ridge County General Hospital. Yes, spare no expense. I need to transfer a patient named Evelyn Shun to your hospital safest way possible. All expenses on my dime. Also, this needs to be kept completely confidential. If the patient or family asks, say it's part of a special hospital outreach program for rural communities or government medical aid. Understand, I hung up and floored the accelerator. Sarah, don't be afraid. This time, I'm here for you. When I finally pulled up to Pine Ridge County General Hospital, dust-covered and exhausted, night had fallen. The hospital corridor reeked of disinfectant. By the ER doors, I saw that familiar, fragile figure. Sarah was huddled in a corner, her head buried in her knees, shoulders shaking, sobbing like a child abandoned by the world. My heart felt like it was being squeezed in a vice, a sharp, physical pain. I walked over, took off my jacket, and gently draped it over her trembling shoulders. Sarah snapped her head up, her tear-streaked face crumpled in shock when she saw me. Ethan, what are you doing here? I heard your grandma was sick. Got worried, so I came to check. I offered the lamest excuse, crouching beside her. How is she? At the mention of her grandma, fresh tears welled up. The doctor said it's a sudden cerebral hemorrhage, very serious. Conditions here at County General are limited. They recommended we transfer her to a big hospital in the state capital for surgery. But the surgery is $200,000. Where am I going to get that kind of money? She broke down, her voice choked beyond recognition. 200 grand. To her right now, that was an astronomical sum. Don't worry about the money, I said, looking into her eyes, my voice firm. I can lend it to you. Sarah stared, stunned. Her eyes were a complex mix of emotions. Why? She asked hoarsely. Ethan, we're not related. Why are you helping me like this? Yeah, why? Because you saved my life twice over? Because I owe you from my last life? I couldn't say those words, not yet. I was silent for a moment, then spoke. Remember I told you about my friend who was saved? He never found that girl. So he turned all that gratitude he wanted to repay into a small foundation, specifically to help people in need. He said it was like doing good deeds on behalf of that unknown girl. I'm just one of the people who manages it. Your situation, it fits her criteria perfectly. I spun a tale that I thought was full of holes. But Sarah, right then, had no energy to discern truth from fiction. She just stared blankly, tears silently running down her cheeks. Just then, the ER doors swung open. A doctor in a white coat emerged. Sarah shot to her feet, rushing over. Doctor, how's my grandma? Are you family? The doctor glanced at her, then at me. Don't worry, her condition is stable for now. We just received notice from specialists in the state capital. They're on their way to transfer her to the state medical center for further treatment. Transfer to the state medical center? Sarah couldn't believe her ears. But the cost. The costs won't be an issue, the doctor said, waving a hand. You're quite lucky. You've qualified for a special state medical aid program for critical patients from underserved areas. Your application went through, so this transfer and all subsequent surgery costs will essentially be fully covered. Sarah was utterly stunned, her mouth agape, unable to utter a single word, just crying silently. I knew Dr. Harrison had pulled through. I stepped forward, gently patting her shoulder. See, everything's going to be all right. Sarah turned, her eyes, red and swollen from crying, filled with overwhelming relief and boundless gratitude. She said nothing, just suddenly stepped forward and hugged me tightly. Her body felt so small, still trembling faintly. Her face was buried in my chest, her warm tears soaking my shirt. Thank you, Ethan, thank you. She repeated it over and over. I reached out, hesitated for a moment, then finally rested my hand gently on her back. A familiar herbal scent, mixed with her own faint, sweet fragrance, enveloped me. In that moment, my heart found a peace I'd never known. After her grandma was successfully transferred to the state medical center, Sarah insisted on staying with her. I couldn't talk her out of it, so I stayed too. I had Mike book 2 rooms at the best hotel near the hospital, but Sarah flat out refused. She only wanted to be right outside her grandma's room. Finally, I compromised. I arranged for her grandma to have a private room in the hospital's VIP wing, complete with a pull-out bed for a companion. That way, at least she wouldn't be sleeping on a cold hallway floor. The surgery was scheduled for 3 days later, with Dr. Harrison himself performing it. Those 3 days were the first time Sarah and I truly spent time together, just the two of us. My daily mission became her 3 meals, making sure she ate and rested on time. She wouldn't leave the ward, so I'd bring food back for her, watching her eat. She stayed up late every night, so I'd stay by her side, telling her jokes from financial magazines, anything to make her smile. She was initially reserved, always apologizing for bothering me. But slowly, she seemed to grow used to my presence. She'd chat with me about her hometown, about growing up with her grandma. She told me she'd lost her parents young, and her grandma had raised her, picking wild herbs and tending a small plot of land. Her grandma was the only family she had in the world. When she spoke of this, her eyes would redden. I'd just quietly hand her a tissue, saying nothing. I knew this strong, resilient girl was slowly, carefully opening her heart to me. The night before the surgery, Sarah was too nervous to sleep. She sat on the companion bed, knees drawn to her chest, watching her grandma in the hospital bed, hooked up to tubes, her eyes red-rimmed again. Ethan, she said suddenly, her voice barely a whisper. You said Grandma will be okay, right? She will, I said, walking over and sitting beside her. Dr. Harrison is one of the best specialists in the country. For him, this surgery is practically routine. But I'm still so scared, she whispered, burying her face in her knees, her voice muffled. I'm scared. Scared I'll wake up and she'll be gone. I looked at her slight shoulders, remembering how she'd endured countless desperate nights like this, alone in my last life. I reached out, intending to gently pat her back, offer comfort, just like I had in the hospital hallway. But this time, she suddenly lifted her head, leaned in, and gently rested it on my shoulder. My body instantly froze. Her hair was soft, smelling of shampoo, and that faint herbal scent tickling my neck. Ethan, can it just be for a little while? Her voice held a fragile, almost imperceptible hint of dependence. My heart utterly melted. Okay, I heard myself say, my voice unbelievably soft. We just sat there quietly, neither of us speaking. The only sounds in the room were the quiet beeps of machines and our steady breaths. I don't know how long passed. I felt the weight on my shoulder grow heavier. I looked down. Sarah had fallen asleep, her head resting on my shoulder. Tears still clung to her long lashes, but her sleeping face was peaceful, like a child who had finally found safety. I carefully adjusted my posture, making sure she was comfortable. Then, I reached for a thin blanket nearby and gently covered her. Watching her sleep, so many things flooded my mind. In my last life, I'd given all my tenderness and patience to someone who didn't deserve an ounce of it. I thought I was repaying a debt, but I was just deluding myself. And this girl, who genuinely saved me, who gave me a second chance at life, I let her suffer so much alone. Thankfully, it wasn't too late. Thankfully, I was back. The surgery was a complete success. After her grandma moved from ICU to a regular room, Sarah's smiles grew more frequent, more genuine. She started talking to me more, even cracking jokes. She'd point at the financial news on TV and ask, Ethan, do you know that guy? He looks so important. I tell her that guy was my father's business rival, whom my dad had thoroughly crushed in the market last month. Her eyes would widen, looking at me with pure admiration. You're amazing. I feel a little blush creep up my neck and just touch my nose trying to act cool. On the day of discharge, I went to handle the paperwork. Sarah and her grandma, who was already up and walking, waited in the room. When I returned, I saw her grandma holding Sarah's hand, talking to her. I softened my footsteps, standing just outside the door. I heard her grandma, her voice thick with a rural accent, say, Sarah, that young man Ethan, he's a good one. Look at him these past few days, running around, taking such good care of you. Grandma's seen a thing or two, and I can tell he likes you. Sarah's face instantly flushed scarlet. She stamped her foot lightly. Grandma, stop. We're just classmates. Classmates do all that. Don't try to fool your grandma. Her grandma chuckled, patting her hand. I know you're shy, but this boy, he's got good character, good family. If you let him go, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Sarah looked down, her voice small. But we're not even in the same world. He's so good, I don't deserve him. Hearing that, my heart twisted again. Self-doubt, like a persistent thorn, was deeply embedded in this girl's heart. I couldn't let her think like that anymore. I cleared my throat, pushed the door open, and walked in. Grandma, Sarah, all the paperwork's done. We can head out. Sarah saw me. Her face flushed even deeper, like a child caught doing something wrong, unable to meet my eyes. I walked to her and, in front of her grandma, very naturally took her hand. Her hand was cool, and she instinctively tried to pull away. I tightened my grip, not letting her retreat. I looked into her eyes, my voice earnest. Sarah, in my heart, you're the best. There's no such thing as deserve when it comes to us. Only my willingness. My choice. Sarah stared at me, eyes shimmering with unshed tears. Grandma, beside her, beamed, a smile so wide it nearly split her face. After getting Sarah and her grandma settled back in their hometown, we returned to State University together. Since the shared ordeal at the hospital, Sarah and I's relationship had subtly shifted. We were no longer just classmates. We'd go to the library together, eat in the cafeteria together. I'd drive her back to her dorm, and she'd stand outside, watching until my car disappeared before going in. The campus gossip, once rich kid harassing scholarship student, had morphed into rich kid and scholarship student's campus romance. Some of the rumors were good, some bad, but Sarah didn't seem to care anymore. She just quietly went about her business, classes, her part-time job at the cafe, and then spending time with me. Her face showed more and more genuine smiles. All this, of course, didn't escape Victoria and Blake's notice. They probably couldn't fathom why I, the man Victoria had rejected, wasn't still pining for her, but instead was openly in love with someone else. What confused them even more was why that poor girl Sarah, in their eyes, had suddenly changed. She still wore simple clothes, but her entire aura had shifted. She was no longer the timid girl who always kept her head down. She was confident, cheerful, even radiant. All these changes ignited an unprecedented sense of crisis and jealousy in Victoria. One afternoon, Sarah and I were strolling by the campus pond. We ran right into Victoria and Blake. They just wouldn't quit, would they? Victoria, ditching her usual aloof facade, walked right up to us, a strange smile on her face. Ethan, Sarah, what a coincidence. I ignored her, pulling Sarah along, trying to walk past them. Ethan, wait, Victoria said, blocking our path. She glanced at my hand, clasped with Sarah's, a flicker of resentment in her eyes, quickly hidden. She turned to Sarah, her voice falsely sweet. Sarah, I want to talk to you about something privately. Could we? Sarah looked at me, her expression troubled. Before I could speak, Blake chimed in with a sneer. What, mister? Walker, are you that possessive? Can't even let her talk to someone? Afraid your little girlfriend will run off. I gave him a cold, hard look. Sarah, however, shook her head at me, then turned to Victoria. Okay, what do you want to say? The two girls walked off a bit. I couldn't make out their words, but I saw Victoria talking animatedly, and Sarah's face slowly turning grave. A moment later, Sarah walked back to me, her face pale. What did she say? I asked. Sarah shook her head, forcing a weak smile. Nothing. Let's go. I knew it wasn't that simple. Back in my apartment, I immediately called Mike. Find out what Victoria Hayes and Blake Miller have been up to lately. Mike was efficient. He had answers for me the next day. Mr. Walker Jr. Victoria Hayes has been trying to get her foot in the door with some production companies lately. She thought you were going to back her, so she rejected several smaller agencies. Now that you've pulled out, she's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Can't find a new gig. And Blake's been working on an academic paper, trying to enter a national competition. Winning it would supposedly boost his grad school applications significantly. I leaned back in my chair, my fingers lightly tapping the desk. Academic paper? Then I remembered. In my past life, Blake won first prize in that national competition with this paper, made a name for himself, and got into grad school easily. But later, after I was gone, someone exposed him. His paper was plagiarized. In Victoria, I opened my laptop and typed in a name, Apex Talent Management. This was the agency Victoria jumped to after I made her famous in my last life. The head of that agency, Mr. Davies, was notoriously a sleazebag, always preying on his female talent. Victoria, in order to land a major role, had willingly gone to his bed. Right now, Victoria wasn't famous. Apex Talent Management wouldn't give her the time of day. But what if I helped her? A dark idea began to form in my mind. The next day, Sarah came to her shift at the cafe, visibly downcast. I asked her what was wrong, but she wouldn't tell me. Ms. Henderson quietly took me aside. Ethan, yesterday, some flashy girl came in looking for Sarah and said all sorts of terrible things. She told Sarah she was a homewrecker, stealing her man. Said you, Ethan Walker, were a manipulative liar, playing with her, then moving on to Sarah, warning Sarah not to be so naive. My fists instantly clenched. Victoria Hayes. I walked over to Sarah. She was wiping down tables, her eyes red and puffy. Sarah, I said. She looked up, saw me, and forced a smile. I led her directly to the cafe's back patio, where we were alone. What did Victoria say to you? I asked, cutting straight to the chase. Sarah's tears instantly welled up. She said you've been pursuing her for ages, doing so much for her. She said you're only being nice to me now because it's new, to get back at her, to make her jealous. She also said, you two are destined, and I'm just a ridiculous third wheel. I looked at her, tears streaming down her face, feeling both a pang of heartache and a strange sense of amusement. I reached out, gently wiping away her tears. "Do you believe her? Or do you believe me?" I asked. Sarah bit her lip, remaining silent. "Sarah, if I were really the manipulative jerk she claims, would I have driven for hours through the night when your grandma was hospitalized? Would I have pulled every string I could for her surgery?" Sarah stammered, caught off guard. "Victoria, I admit, I did approach her before." I looked into her eyes, deciding to tell her part of the truth. Because I always thought she was the one who saved me 5 years ago. I only approached her to repay a debt. But later, I found out I had the wrong person. "The wrong person?" Sarah looked stunned. "Yes." I took her hand. "The one who truly saved me was you, Sarah." I told her about Mike's investigation, about the sachet. Sarah, after hearing it, was completely speechless. She probably never imagined such a story behind it all. "So," she murmured, "you're good to me just because. Because of a debt." "No," I said, shaking my head, cupping her face, making her look at me. "At first, yes. But later, being with you, I realized I was falling in love with you. I love seeing your eyes light up when you talk about herbs. I love the satisfied way you drink the bubble tea I buy you. I love seeing you asleep on my shoulder. Sarah, I love you. And it has nothing to do with any debt." It was the first time I'd ever been so open, so direct, confessing to a girl. Sarah's face, from her ears to her neck, flushed deep red. She looked at me, her eyes sparkling with tears, but this time they were tears of pure joy. Then why didn't you tell me sooner?" she whispered. "Because I was afraid I'd scare you off," I said, a wry smile touching my lips. "And because I wanted to prove with my actions that I wasn't the kind of person Victoria claimed I was." Sarah looked at me for a long moment. Then she stood on tiptoe and gently kissed my cheek, like a feather-light touch, gone in an instant. Then, blushing furiously, she darted back into the cafe. I stood there, momentarily stunned, touched the spot where she'd kissed me, and smiled. "Victoria, Blake, your time is up." The first thing I did was anonymously send a detailed tip-off to the National Collegiate Research Competition Committee. The letter meticulously detailed the alleged plagiarism in Blake's paper on risk avoidance in financial derivatives in emerging markets. I even thoughtfully included the original source, a paper published in some obscure international journal. In my past life, this plagiarism had come out long after Blake had won his award. This time, I wanted him to crash hard, right when he was at his most triumphant and self-satisfied. After that, I called Mr. Davies, the head of Apex Talent Management. "Mr. Davies, long time no see." Mr. Davies on the other end was clearly surprised, bordering on obsequious. "Mr. Walker, what an honor. To what do I owe the call?" "I've got someone I'd like to recommend to you," I said, getting straight to the point. "Of course. Anyone you recommend, Mr. Walker, must be top-tier talent. From our university, name's Victoria Hayes. Decent looks, some raw talent, but not the brightest bulb." I said nonchalantly. "She'll probably be contacting you soon. Sign her. Give her a minor role. But make sure she feels like it's a role she earned through considerable effort." I put extra emphasis on effort. Mr. Davies, being who he was, caught my drift immediately. Understood. Mr. Walker, rest assured, I'll handle this perfectly. I guarantee Miss Hayes will be satisfied." "Good. After this is handled, my father's company has a security contract for a new high-rise development. I'll make sure your company gets the bid." "Thank you, Mr. Walker. Thank you so much." Mr. Davies' voice was practically quivering with excitement. I hung up, looked out at the night sky, a cold smile playing on my lips. "Victoria, you want to be a big star, don't you? You think you'll do whatever it takes to succeed? Fine. I'll grant your wish. I'll make sure you get everything you ever wanted in the most degrading way possible. And then I'll watch you crash and burn from the highest peak." A week later, 2 pieces of news detonated across campus simultaneously. First, Blake Miller, the prodigy of the School of Business, won first prize in the National Collegiate Research Competition. The university's website, radio station, and bulletin boards were all overflowing with praise for him. He became a campus idol, basking in endless glory. Second, Victoria Hayes, the campus queen from the School of Arts, successfully signed with Apex Talent Management, and landed the role of the third female lead in a popular TV adaptation. Not a lead, but for a newcomer, it was a massive break. Victoria loudly announced the news on her social media. Every post reeking of a smug talent will out, and hard work pays off attitude. Blake and Victoria, the golden couple, were, for a brief moment, the hottest commodity on campus. They walked across campus together, soaking in the envious glances and well wishes, their faces radiating unconcealed triumph. They probably thought they'd finally shed me, their obstacle, and reach the pinnacle of their lives through talent and hard work. Sarah scrolled through the endless praise for them on the university forum, asking me, a worried frown on her face, "Ethan, they're not actually going to get away with this, are they?" I was peeling an apple for her. I smiled at her question, offering her a slice to her mouth. "Don't rush. The real show is just beginning." Just the day before Blake was set to represent the university and fly to New York to accept his award, that anonymous tip-off landed on the dean's desk. Simultaneously, more detailed evidence of plagiarism, complete with side-by-side text comparisons, was posted by an anonymous account on the university forum. It was like throwing a grenade into a quiet room. The entire forum exploded. Holy crap, is this for real? Blake Miller's paper is plagiarized. The comparison screenshots are damning. It's practically a word-for-word translation. My God, I looked up to him just days ago. Turns out he's an academic fraud. Reputation ruined. So disgusting. The university administration was furious, immediately launching an investigation. Faced with undeniable evidence, Blake had no defense. Soon, the disciplinary action was announced. National competition disqualification, all honors revoked, a major disciplinary warning, and a public reprimand sent to the entire student body. Blake plunged from the clouds, straight into the mud. He became the biggest joke on campus. Walking around, everyone pointed, whispered, snickered. Former admirers now crossed the street to avoid him. And his grad school admission? Vaporized. I heard he holed up in his dorm for 3 days, smashing everything, acting like a madman. Meanwhile, Victoria Hayes' life wasn't going so well either. After Blake's scandal broke, Victoria immediately tried to distance herself. She posted a vague, self-serving message on her social media. "Can't believe I misjudged someone so badly. Girls, always keep your eyes open." This, of course, triggered Blake's furious retaliation. Blake created a new anonymous account on the university forum and started spilling Victoria's dark history. He claimed Victoria was no pure angel, but a complete gold digger. He said Victoria only approached me for my money, and her rejection was just a manipulative tactic. He also exposed that Victoria, to get her role at Apex Talent Management, had actively networked with Mr. Davies, even attaching a blurry photo of her leaving his hotel room late at night. The photo was grainy, but undeniably Victoria. These two former lovers were now like rabid dogs, tearing each other apart, exposing each other's ugliest secrets to the world. The university was in an uproar. Victoria's reputation was utterly destroyed. She became synonymous with manipulative opportunist and gold digger. Apex Talent Management, bowing to public pressure, immediately terminated her contract and demanded breach of contract penalties. Victoria, overnight, went from a rising star to a public pariah. She blamed it all on me. She felt that I had destroyed her, destroyed Blake, destroyed everything she had. That evening, I was walking Sarah back to her dorm. Outside her dorm, Victoria Hayes burst out and blocked our path. She looked haggard, her hair disheveled, eyes bloodshot. She was a shadow of her former campus queen self. "Ethan," she fixed me with a wild stare, her voice shrill as fingernails on a chalkboard. "It was you. All of this. It was all you, wasn't it?" I looked at her frenzied face and only felt pity. "You ruined me. You couldn't stand to see me succeed. You couldn't have me, so you had to destroy me." She shrieked hysterically. "What did I ever do to you? I saved your life. Is this how you repay me?" "Saved you," I scoffed, shielding Sarah behind me. "Victoria, it's come to this, and you're still acting?" 5 years ago, Willow Creek Lake. The one who saved me was Sarah. You and your loving boyfriend, Blake, just stood by and watched me drown. Isn't that right? My words, like a bucket of ice water, drenched Victoria. The madness on her face instantly froze, replaced by boundless fear and shock. You? How do you know? Her lips trembled, her face ashen. This was the biggest secret between her and Blake. She thought no one would ever know. What's done in the dark will always find its way to the light, I said, looking at her, each word chillingly precise. Victoria, you never owed me anything. On the contrary, I was the one who mistook a pebble for a diamond, allowing you to enjoy things you never earned. But you shouldn't have been so greedy, and you certainly shouldn't have repaid kindness with such malice, killing someone who truly cared for you. I was talking about my past life. Victoria didn't understand, but she felt the chilling coldness in my words to her core. She was scared, truly scared. She dropped to her knees, grabbing my pant leg, sobbing uncontrollably. Ethan, I'm so sorry. I was so wrong. Please forgive me. Please give me another chance, okay? I swear I won't do anything like this again. I'll do anything you say. Just tell me. You like me, didn't you? I can be with you. I don't want Blake anymore. I'll only be with you. She was like a dog begging for scraps, abandoning all dignity. I looked at her, only feeling revulsion. I kicked her hand away. Too late. With that, I pulled Sarah and walked into the dorm building without a backward glance. Behind us, Victoria's desperate, hateful wails echoed. I knew her life, as she knew it, was over. After dealing with Victoria and Blake, I didn't feel much pleasure, just an overwhelming sense of relief. The scores from my past life? Settled. And the path of this life? It was just beginning. My relationship with Sarah, after all that turbulence, grew even stronger. She was no longer the insecure, sensitive girl she'd been. She became more and more confident, more and more outgoing. She'd actively share every little detail of her life and would light up all day from a single compliment from me. Under her influence, I became less brooding. I started enjoying campus life, accompanying her to her favorite herbal medicine electives, reading with her in the library for entire afternoons. Sunlight streamed through the windows onto us. Life was calm and beautiful. It was Sarah's birthday. I secretly booked the Sunny Spot Cafe, transforming it into a fairy tale with countless balloons and flowers. When I led her inside, hand in hand, she gasped, covering her mouth in surprise. Ethan, I pulled a sachet from behind my back, identical to the one she carried, but more intricately made. Sarah, I looked into her eyes, my voice soft with emotion. 5 years ago, you saved my life with a sachet. Today, I want to use a new sachet to ask for a lifetime with you. I opened the sachet. Inside, there were no herbs, but a sparkling diamond ring. I dropped to one knee, holding the ring up to her. Sarah, I don't want to be just classmates anymore. I want to be your boyfriend, your fiancé, your future husband, the father of your children. I want to be part of all your tomorrows. Sarah, will you marry me? Sarah's tears streamed down her face, like a broken string of pearls. She cried, she laughed, and nodded vigorously. I will. I stood up, thrilled, slipped the ring onto her finger, and pulled her into a tight hug. Ms. Henderson and the cafe staff cheered, clapping enthusiastically. Amidst everyone's blessings, I lowered my head and kissed my girl. Her lips, soft and sweet like cotton candy. After college graduation, we had a beautiful wedding. I used all my shares to establish a charitable foundation, named after Sarah, dedicated to funding medical and herbal medicine research in underserved communities. Sarah became the foundation's director. She was no longer the girl scrambling to make ends meet. She'd found her true passion, her calling. Dressed in sharp business attire, she traveled between remote communities and research institutes, radiating a captivating glow. And I became her strongest support. I occasionally thought of my past self, that foolish, misguided Ethan Walker, who died such an ignominious death. I think I should thank him. His death had brought about my rebirth. His foolishness had opened my eyes to who truly deserved my love. A few years later, one afternoon, I was strolling in our backyard with Sarah, who was now pregnant. She leaned into me, stroking her swollen belly, a blissful smile on her face. Ethan, do you think the baby will be like you or like me? Either is fine, I said, kissing her forehead. Like you, gentle and kind. Like me then, smart and handsome. She laughed, playfully swatting my arm. Just then my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. I answered. On the other end, a woman's voice. Weak, yet chillingly familiar. Is that Ethan? I paused. Who is this? I'm Victoria Hayes. My brow furrowed. I hadn't heard that name in years. I'd heard she ended up owing massive penalties from her broken contract, couldn't find work, and had a rough life. What do you want? My voice was cold. I'm dying. Her voice was faint, broken. Before I go, I just want to ask you one more question. Go ahead. In the last life, did you die too? Was it Blake and I who killed you? My pupils sharply constricted. How do you? I was in a car accident a few days ago. I'm not going to make it. When I was unconscious, I remembered everything. I remembered what Blake and I did to you in the last life. Ethan, I'm sorry. Truly, I'm so sorry. Her voice grew weaker and weaker, until finally, a busy signal hummed in my ear. I held the phone, frozen, unable to process it. She remembered too? No, not Reborn. She just regained her past life memories, right before she died. What was this? A deathbed confession? Too little, too late. Sarah noticed my strained expression. What's wrong, honey? Who was that? I shook my head, deleted the call record, and pulled her into a tight embrace. Nothing, just a wrong number. The sun was warm, the breeze gentle. My girl, my love, was right here in my arms. That was enough. As for the dark past, and the people who no longer mattered, let them drift away with the wind.